welcome to the all new, all different number one comics podcast, episode number 68. We are a weekly comic book podcast where each and every episode we take a look at a brand new first issue comic book, break down the story and art, give it somewhat of a review, and let you know if we think that you should move on to issue number 2 or not. We also talk a little bit of comic book and related news, even when that exists, as well as what's new at comic book shops this and next week. By the way, I'm Dan, and that's Bob. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
Bob, in the remote Hawaiian location, welcome to the nice resort out there. Hope you're doing well in the palm trees and sun.
Sure. I don't make I don't make enough money.
Well, fair enough. Who does? Anyways, this week we're going to be taking a very deep dive into the all-new number 1
from Dynamite Comics Space Ghost.
That's right, Space Ghost. No, it's not Space Ghost Coast to Coast. It's just Space Ghost. I know that's
what. Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this comic, I'm not going to lie, I did say Space Ghost Coast to Coast a few times.
Right? Like it had such a big impact. But yeah, this is cool, and this is completely divorced from that. So this is its own thing. But that takes care of our intro, Bob. We're going to take a quick 2-second break, and we'll be right back. It sure as hell will. It's always an interesting episode here on the all new, all different number one comics podcast. Let's talk news then, Bob. We've got, a little bit of news. Of course, we're recording on Saturday, May the 4th. Bob, say it.
May the 4th be with you.
There you go. I was waiting. It's May the 4th.
It was coming.
It's actually Free Comic Book Day, Bob. And even though neither one of us are partaking just yet, there is, lots of free comic books out there. And, I guess by the time this airs, it'll probably be a little bit too late unless you're on like a different coast and I post this up today or something. But yeah, there's lots of free, cool comic books out today. I don't know. I would go over like the list or something, but I'm not even going to worry about it. There's a lot. There's a lot of cool comic books. There is a Blood Hunt tie-in, so maybe pick that up. There's a lot of cool like free comic book day stuff this year. So definitely, that'd be a lot
to go through.
Yeah, it would. The guy that I interviewed, so there's an interview attached to this episode, Bob, and it's I wouldn't even dream of being able to say his name now, but it's like Nikesh Shukla, I think is maybe how you say it. Nikesh Shukla. He was a really, really cool author, and he was the author of Spider-Man India, that last volume of Spider-Man India that we got.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got a story in the Spider-Man, the Marvel Voices Free Comic Book Day, another Spider-Man India story. So I'm really excited to check that one out because Spider-Man India was really cool. He's a really good writer. So stoked for that. But yeah, either way, let's get into news outside of, Free Comic Book Day. Bob, and, again, this being remote, you're not right here next to me. You're probably going to have to like Google this or something. I guess I could try to, maybe I'll stall for time and I'll send you a link if you've got like your phone or something right there next to you. But okay, good. We're going to be talking a little bit of Frank Miller. So if that means anything to you, Frank Miller, there's been some controversial Frank Miller covers that have come out recently. One being that Wolverine, I think it was like Wolverine Ghost Rider is like a team up Ghost Rider Wolverine Weapons of Vengeance. Do you remember that cover that came out just a little while ago with the really interesting Wolverine on the cover? Yeah. So this one is kind of the same deal. We've got Frank Miller's Uncle Scrooge cover. So, Jason Aaron is doing Uncle Scrooge Marvel book.
Oh, good God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just saw it and it's like, oh, good God.
Yeah, it's something really weird going on. It's a very stylized look and everything. But yeah, I mean, Frank Miller, a huge superstar artist, known for like Daredevil, Dark Knight Returns, Sin City, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's now coming up on this like really weird look on the stuff that he's putting out, on these variants he's putting out. And this is one that's a little crazy. It's for, like I said, the Jason Aaron Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Dime one shot that's going to be coming out pretty soon. But yeah, it's just, you guys Google this thing. That's all I can say. Google it and check it out, because it's odd. It's definitely not as bad as that Wolverine cover, but wow.
Well, and the thing with Frank Miller, unfortunately, of course, we know his seminal work is on, The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, just like in Wolverine, that's the kind of style he looks like he's going for on this cover, which it worked in the Dark Knight Returns, but I don't know if he was the best artist to work on Uncle Scrooge.
Yeah, and the thing that I want to point out for the people that can't see it is just it's not terrible. It's definitely not by any means the worst comic book art I've seen on a cover before, but
it's not John Cassaday. Yeah, true. Something about the eyes here is just very off-putting. It's like very like cursed or something. Not only the eyes for me, but the mouth.
Yeah, the mouth is a little odd as well.
I hate to say it, because Frank Miller, he's done some really good stuff, but Uncle Scrooge looks like he got his bill smushed.
Yeah. Look, Bob, there's a part of that article. I'm just gonna send you like a picture really quick, because again, this is really fun. But somebody on Twitter or X or whatever you're supposed to call it now has put a side-by-side comparison of Frank Miller's Wolverine #1 up against his Ghost Rider Wolverine there, and it's just like, holy shit, what happened, dude? What is going on with this? These new stylized takes here, but just some really interesting stuff.
Oh wow, that's
right.
That's a giant difference.
Yeah, a big difference. Either way, it's sparked some major social media reactions, and I'm pretty sure that's to be expected with that. Now, onto the other little bit of news, Bob. This one's a little crazy. This is like, it's sad and it's really weird. So I didn't know this off the top of my head, but did you know that Free Comic Book Day began back in 2002? And it was by like a local comic book shop owner came up with the idea and then got with the publishers on it. And then they, did this whole huge, massive thing to, help bring attention to comic books and all of that.
I didn't know it was that new.
Yeah, likewise. I had no clue. So there's the original store is in Concord, and I'm going to gather the, a little bit more specific information here, but it's a shop called Flying Color Comics and Other Cool Stuff. So they have
okay. That's a title.
Yeah, definitely. They are doing their final Free Comic Book Day today.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, they're closing down. So they've got to close up shop. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but yeah, the store's owner, Joe Field, founded the first Comic Book Day event in 2002. So it's really fun, because he actually was inspired by a shop a store that was next to him, a Baskin Robbins, because they did a free ice cream scoop night. And he was like, you know what? That's a really good idea. I'm going to do that with comic books, which is
wow.
Really cool. Yeah. And they ended up with this huge successful event. It's, bringing a lot of revenue and a lot of people into the comic book shops every year. So it really kind of sucks that they're having to close down. It's, I guess, it's Contra Costa County. I have no idea where that it's in the Bay Area of Northern California.
Okay.
But yeah, it sucks. This is going to be their final free comic book day, and that is Flying Color Comics and other cool stuff. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything you guys can do. Like if there's any way to support them or anything that can be done. I guess if you live in that area, I don't know, go swing by and tell them that sucks and you're sad they're closing. I'm not sure, but yeah, 28 years of being open and they're closing down. So
yeah, being the first ones, and seeing how big and monumental Free Comic Book Day has gotten, which I'm sure they didn't think it'd be anywhere near this big, and the fact that they're doing their last one, and they're closing down with. I can't speculate. If it was outside forces that made them close down, or maybe it was he just wanted to get out. Who knows? But that's a sad thing to hear.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know exactly what's going on. Again, they don't really go into much detail about what exactly is happening, other than I'm reading a little bit towards the end of the article, and it does mention something about possibly trying to find a new home for the shop. So maybe it's just something with the lease. Maybe it's something that can get worked out, but maybe it's just the last one at this location. But either way, sucks. Sorry to hear that, and hopefully they can work something out to still stay open in some capacity somewhere. But, moving on to some lighter news. Bob, June 5th. An important day in my life, but even more important, June 5th, 2026. We are getting a new Masters of the Universe live-action movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be directed by Travis Knight. And if you're not familiar with Travis Knight, if you remember the animated movie, I can't remember who did it. It was DreamWorks, Pixar, Disney, whatever. But Kubo and the Two Strings, you remember that?
Yeah.
Man, a fantastic movie. Really, really good. So he directed that. He directed Paranorman. He directed The Missing Link. And Bob, one of your favorites, he directed Bumblebee. So he's going to be doing
That's right. He did.
Yeah. Right? Because as I was going
totally forgot about that.
His credits, I was like, well, that's cool, but has he ever directed a live feature? Has he ever directed anything with humans in it? Oh, never mind. He directed Bumblebee. The really well received.
That's right.
So, yeah. So this is cool. Look, they've been doing stuff with Masters of the Universe. We've had, was it a Netflix show? I don't know. There was a newer animated show. There's been a Kevin Smith comic book. There's been a lot of renewed interest, and I love Masters of the Universe. I don't know about you. I'm sure you do as well, but we all love He-Man, and Castle Grayskull and all of that. But
yeah, speaking of Netflix, you had Mark Hamill as Skeletor.
Yes.
Come on, that's all you need to say.
Yes.
Here's hoping for Dolph Lundgren.
Dude, is there some way they can swing getting him in there?
Dude, if they don't have him in there, even a cameo, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yes, right? Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for news to come out about casting and all of that, because Bob, okay, here's the question, because I actually don't have anything off the top of my head. Do you see anybody you want cast in this thing?
As He-Man?
Just in general.
Well, of course, right off the bat, I'll just throw out Chris Hemsworth. But if he got cast as He-Man, there'd be too much of a comparison, considering Thor and He-Man are, similar as far as, builds and physique and such.
Yeah.
Other than that, I really can't even speculate. Skeletor might be, just voice only, of course.
Yeah.
since I mean he's just skeleton. But other than that, I really don't have any, names. I mean, I don't know if he's going to go for, established names or newer names.
I assume.
So, I mean,
probably
who knows?
established with him, but so here's something fun, Bob. I found this this website, and they do fan casting, but it's based on votes. So the highest votes. So I'll just go over it really quick because it's just kind of fun. But they did a lot. So and I won't be able to pronounce half of these people's names. So
of course,
for He-Man, Prince Adam, they've got Liam Hemsworth as the number one pick. For Battle Cat / Cringer, Harvey Gillian. I don't know who that is. As voice casting. For Man at Arms / Duncan Liv Schreiber, however you say that.
Nice. Leave.
Okay. Well, I was somewhere in between. Now, the next person, I won't be able to say their name at all. Hopefully, you know who this is. I have no idea. For She-Ra, Leah Sedux. You know what? Maybe I'll send you a again. I'll stall for time. Send you a screenshot and see if you can figure out how to pronounce that name. But it's the female next to the guy in the red box.
Tila. For Tila.
No, for She-Ra.
Oh.
Yes, for She-Ra.
Kind of surprised they're going after She-Ra in a. Well, I mean, I guess they wouldn't be entirely sure if they would get a sequel.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, whoever that actor, whatever their name is, that's who they've got for She-Ra there. For Tila, Jodie Comer. For Orko, Charlie Day. For King.
Oh, jeez.
Right. For King Randor, Nicolas Cage. Right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love Nicolas Cage. I can't see him as King Randor.
Oh man, I can see it. I see the vision. I trust the process there. For Skeletor, now here's a big one, Bob. For Skeletor, Dave Bautista.
Really?
I mean, I don't know if we're just talking voice. I mean, I guess, but voice and motion capture.
Really?
Yeah. Dave Bautista.
That's a giant skeleton.
Really? I know. A huge skeleton. I'd go into some of the other ones, but I can't really pronounce these names. For Trapjaw, Laz Alonso, and for Merman, Andy Serkis. They did have their top suggestion for director, which we already know it's got a director, but they wanted James Gunn. But I think that's just anything now. Anytime there's an ensemble cast, they're like, oh, have James Gunn do it because he did Guardians of the Galaxy really well, and he did the Suicide Squad really bad. So why don't we have him direct everything with an ensemble cast? But I'm not a fan of that. So I like Travis Knight for the director on this. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And I'm going to say it's Léa Seydoux.
Léa Seydoux. Okay. Oh, for the She-Ra pick. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Super cool. Well, our last little bit of news, unless you got anything for us, Bob. I don't know if you got anything for the Star Wars corner or anything like that, but the last little bit of news I
have just a couple of little things that I want to bring up.
Okay, good.
But I'll let you go first.
Yeah, sure. So the last little thing that I have, Radiant Black, of course, the massive universe over there at Image Comics and all of that. Radiant Black is getting a audiobook treatment. So they're going to be voice casting for that pretty soon and everything. But that is cool. I love Radiant Black. That'll be interesting. I'm down to hear a audiobook for a comic. I think that's kind of cool. The last one I can remember is now I can't remember the name of it, but it was the Wolverine one, the Madripoor something.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was interesting, but it was like a radio drama, less like an audiobook and more like a radio drama. So I don't know that I can recall any comic book audiobooks. So yeah, be pretty cool.
I was gonna say it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, and Radiant Black's really good too. So I'm down with that. But yeah, on to you, Bob. What do you got for us?
So something I just saw and I just remembered, and I'm kind of surprised that you didn't bring it up. But according to according to Deadline, there's going to be a live-action Evangeline movie directed by Olivia Wilde, and it may have Margot Robbie attached in the lead role.
Bob, so what you're telling me is we're about to slide Rob Liefeld a whole bunch more money?
Yeah, wow. Of course.
Just what Rob Liefeld means.
Which I honestly have no knowledge whatsoever of Evangeline, but I know it's a popular IP.
Yeah, I've honestly never read any Evangeline stuff before. I think it's like known, but popular. I'm not too sure. I don't. It's like a fallen angel, I think, and that's really all I know about the character. I think she's a fallen angel.
Well, I mean, hasn't there been like a manga or an anime?
Oh, okay. So it's already been like licensed somewhere else or something.
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. I believe it has. Yes.
Well, I guess now would be the time. If you've got a few short boxes sitting around of Evangeline #1, back from '95 from Maximum Press, dig those out.
It's time to get them signed by Rob Liefeld.
Right? Now, no better time than now. Now, here's the real question, because doesn't Rob Liefeld, isn't he one of those creators that has different price points for different things? Like, if you want him to sign, a copy of Major X #1, maybe it's one price. But if you want Deadpool, the first appearance of Deadpool, you want a New Mutants '98 signed by him, or '87 or something, it's a different price because it's
not only that, but he's got the different price points for the different signatures.
You know what, Bob? I have to say, I hate both of those ideas, and I hate to be like.
Oh, so do I. So do I.
But come on, we're paying for a different signature. That's just I get a remark or something, but so you did a rainbow signature. Why is that worth more than a regular signature? It's so weird.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about the Clayton Crane?
Yeah, exactly. The great Clayton Crane. I mean, I know it's all goofy because it's all collectible stuff, and there's not really much value on any of this stuff. It's just what we assign to it. But I don't know. It just seems so goofy and pandery to me to pay a different price for a different kind of signature with no remark or anything. Just I don't get it. But whatever. I mean, that's just my opinion. If you like that kind of thing, there's nothing wrong with that. Just weird for me, but. Interesting. Okay, Bob, anything else?
Yeah, actually, I had two more pieces of news. The second piece of news I have real quick, and this does correlate to May the 4th. I mean, it's kind of a little shameless plug that I don't get paid for, unfortunately. Come on, Disney Plus, what are you doing?
Exactly.
But so Tales of the Empire dropped today. It's a 6-episode TV series on Disney Plus, animated, but all 6 episodes dropped today. So it's not one of those you're gonna have to wait a week to watch it, because actually come June 6th, I believe it is, they have a TV series called they have a TV series called The Acolyte coming. So they kind of have Tales of the Empire is going to focus on Jedi Padawan Barriss Offee, and a character who was introduced in the Ahsoka series, Morgan Elsbeth.
Okay. Nice.
And it's going to show their diverging paths as far as what they do after, of course, Barriss after she leaves the Jedi Order, and Morgan after, the Night Sisters get decimated by the Separatists.
Well, nobody wants to get decimated by the Separatists, that's for sure. It doesn't sound fun.
No.
Yeah, well, that's cool. What else you got for us in news?
So my final piece of news, I was just reading last night, and I'm sure you've read this too, but we have a new player in the MCU.
Oh, Bob, I did see this, but I don't recall who it is off the top of my head. So yeah.
Giancarlo Esposito.
So what else has Giancarlo Esposito been in?
So if you've seen, have you watched The Mandalorian?
A few episodes. I can't lie, just a few.
Okay, well he plays Moff Gideon.
Oh, okay. I am familiar with Moff Gideon. Okay.
And of course, famously, I don't know who his character was, but famously, he was in Breaking Bad.
Okay. A show that I'm not interested in watching, but yes, I know a lot of people are. I know it's a really popular show. Again, give me a cancer subplot and I'm out. But yeah, that's cool. Any word on who he's playing?
So there's no, and he was, he was wanting this, and he was, basically pandering for this role, I guess is the word to say. But he was actually pandering for the role of Professor X.
Wow. Okay, that would be cool.
But he said in the article that it's not going to be Professor X, and it's going to be another character. And I was actually talking to a buddy of mine last night. We were texting back and forth about it, and just as a joke character, he brought up a character, and I had to actually look him up. An X-Man called Forget-Me-Not.
Hey, I remember that character.
Well, apparently, I didn't see who the other character was, but it was not to be confused with this other character called Forget-Me-Not. But the Forget-Me-Not that he was talking about was a mutant whose powers basically makes people forget about him. Apparently he was on the X-Men team for like 6 years, but nobody remembered.
Everybody forgot about it.
And Professor X even had to put a psychic note in his mind to remember Forget-Me-Not every hour.
Oh God, that's sad,
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not one of those, you don't need to take credit or you don't need accolades or anything. Then, I mean, what better way to be stealthy than the fact that nobody remembers you, nobody knows, nobody even knows you're there.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely work that out to your advantage. That's for sure.
But so the other two names, the other serious names, he brought up, which I could definitely see this happening. He brought up the possibility of Kang.
Oh, okay.
If they still wanted to go that route. Or, I thought about this and I'm like, he could definitely, he definitely gets the, he definitely could portray the character's mannerisms, but the character of Dr. Doom.
Oh, which, well, I mean, everybody's begging for Dr. Doom, so.
And if you think about it, especially, if you've watched The Mandalorian, which I know a lot of people have, seeing his portrayal of Moff Gideon, he could definitely portray Doom's arrogance.
Yeah. That could be really cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those are just the little pieces of news that I had.
Hey, big pieces of news in my opinion. Well, with that being said, we are going to take a quick break. Again, I'm going to edit a break in here, but you guys will hear a break either way. We'll be right back. And we are back. We didn't really take a break, but we kind of took a break. We are back with the all new, all different
Cue music
podcast, right? Episode number 68. Bob, I'm going to talk to him about some new comics that are in shops this week. Again, as we talked about, It's free comic book day, so there's a lot of new stuff in comic book shops this week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go over all of that. We're just going to hit the paid books that came out on May 1st, actually, for now, just because, yeah, there's a lot in shops this week. Starting us off, though, from Marvel Comics, a big event and one that how about this, Bob? I know a lot of people have event fatigue. A lot of people complain about events in comics. A lot of people who read comics and collect events complain about events. How do you feel about events, number one? And number two, are you at all excited for Blood Hunt, number one?
I can feel events get kind of played out because it's kind of like we have one event and then it leads into another event and then it leads into this event and then ultimately leads into a major event.
Yep.
Sometimes I just want to, just give me like standalone comics or just give me like a 2-issue arc or something like that.
Yeah, smaller event that's not so title spanning. I agree, but
right.
I will say this one I'm really excited about. I've already read the first issue, of course, and this one comes with. I think this is the first time this is happening over at Marvel, but we get the regular issue and then we get a red band edition as well. So it's more bloody. It's got cussing. It's crazy.
I definitely think that's a really cool idea.
I do too. Sometimes that kind of thing is gimmicky, but no, here I think it definitely fits. It works.
I don't know. It to me, it's not as gimmicky as opening up a comic and hearing it roar. Possibly once.
Yeah,
possibly not at all.
Yeah, well, that part too. Look, gimmicks and comics, they go hand in hand. We all remember, hollow foil covers and embossed covers, and just recently,
hologram.
Yep. Just recently, Bob and I got to do a scratch and sniff. So, there's, gimmicks are all over the place. We've got sound covers.
The banana scratch and sniff.
Yes. But polybagged red band variant, I'm really down with, especially for this event. This event's really cool. It introduces like a new villain team. And what this event is, which I didn't quite understand at first. I don't remember what the solicit was, but like, this event essentially is like you've got these vampires and they decide to, the only way they're going to be able to overtake, the superheroes out there is to drink superhero blood. So they're jacked up on superhero blood. So they are like some very powerful vampires. And it's them against the, 616. So really cool. Blade is heavily involved. That's a sell for me in itself. But yeah, this is a cool event. So Blood Hunt number one out this week. The Red Band edition also out this week. And there's, like I said, free comic book day. There's a free comic book day book that's out as well. We also got Deadpool Wolverine World War III issue number one. This one, Marvel slid in a secret one per store variant by Gabrielle Dell'Otto. It's a really cool cover. I've got one of those really great cover of it's basically Wolverine kind of tearing up Deadpool. Bob, I don't know if you can still see my screen or not, but there's a big glare on it. But
I saw that one.
Yeah, so a pretty nice cover, a cool one per store there. I dig it. We got Get Fury number one. Garth Ennis return to Marvel. Marvel Max return. This is really cool. I know you remember Marvel Max, the more mature, adult-oriented line. So it's like we're doing Red Band and Max in the same week. yeah, we're doing Max and Red Band in the same week. Really cool. So Garth Ennis over on a Marvel book. I'm excited about that. We've got Immortal Thor issue 10. We've got Incredible Hulk issue 12. We've got Spider-Woman issue number 7, Bob. And this one is the first full team appearance of the Assembly. Bob, this one sold out everywhere. This book sold out. Wow. It did really, really well. And congratulations, Steve Fox. Every cover sold out. Everybody wanted this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, awesome work, Steve. That's really cool. Bob, a book that did not sell out anywhere. We got Star Wars: The Phantom Menace 25th Anniversary one shot. Was this a book that anybody was asking for? Look, you're the Star Wars guy. Did anybody want to read more about The Phantom Menace?
Okay, I know the Phantom Menace.
Don't defend it, Bob. Don't do it.
I know the prequels get hate. I mean, not as much as the sequels get, because you can't get any more hate than that.
Yeah.
But the Phantom Menace. Can I say it was a great movie? No. I mean, it was a good movie. I saw it 5 times, but I chalked that up to the fact that I was 18 and there hadn't been a new Star Wars movie since, 83. Not counting the updated, trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a great movie, but it introduces some really good elements. I mean, it introduces Darth Maul.
Sorry.
Moving on. It introduces Qui-Gon Jinn. It introduces a young Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yep.
And I mean, we get some great people playing them. I mean, we get that kind of introduced the world to Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, you're right.
If they hadn't seen them already. So, I mean, while it's not a great movie, it's got some really good elements to it.
It really does. I'm with you. I actually don't hate it. It's just, it's obviously not the best Star Wars movie. We all know that.
No.
There are certain things about it, and like Kevin Smith famously said in his animated Clerks series, the pod race was pretty cool. So I'll give it that. But Watto, Jar Jar, Boss Nass, I don't know about those characters, but yeah, maybe the rest are okay. But yeah, either way.
Fun fact: the guy who voiced Boss Nass was actually originally young to play Odin.
Really? Very
yes.
Interesting. Huh, that's cool.
Yes.
Either way, back to books out this week, Bob. We also got Vengeance of Moon Knight, issue number 5. Now, that is a Blood Hunt tie-in, so if you're grabbing all the tie-ins, pick that one up. We got Weapon X-Men number 3 and X-Men issue 34. Over to Image Comics, we got Bear Pirate Viking Queen number 1. That's right, Bear Pirate Viking Queen. Those aren't just 4 random words that I stuck together. No, the creator of this book did that for me. We got Crave, issue number 6, the final issue of Crave. Bob, Void Rivals number 1, in its 8th printing, came out this week.
Jeez.
Right?
Wow.
And then we got Whisper Queen, a Black Sand Tale number 1, as well as White Trees, a Black Sand Tale one-shot. From Boom Studios, we got Ghost Lore number 10, issue number 10, Bob. I can't believe issue 10 of that.
I know.
And I would like to point out, I was going to show you this message whenever you got here, but since we're working remotely, I'll just tell you, oddly enough, I don't know if you remember when I initially spoke to Colin Bunn about coming on the podcast. I don't know, probably over a year ago at this point. I got a message from Colin Bunn last night that said, "Hey, sorry for the delay. I'd love to come on if you'll still have me." So, Colin Bunn, of course, you could message me 50 years from now, and I'd still have you on. I'd create a special episode to have you on. It doesn't matter when.
If you wanted to come on at 2, if you wanted to come on at in 2 in the morning, I do the interview.
Exactly. I mean, Colin Bunn, you're welcome anytime. But I thought that was fun. I wanted to throw that out there. But we also got Ranger Academy issue number 7. From Dynamite Comics, we got issue number 3 of Lilo and Stitch, and of course the book we're covering today, Space Ghost, from David Pepose. From DC, Bob, there's some DC books out this week. I'm not interested in a single one of them, but we did get DC's Spring Breakout number 1. We got the Flash Annual. We got the Harley Quinn Annual. We got the Nightwing Annual. And we got Superman's House of Brainiac special one-shot, a House of Brainiac tie-in. From Sumerian, we got Basic Instinct number 4. I know you're excited. And The Fog issue number 3 by Steve Ekstrom. From Magma Comics. Magma, I think this is their 2nd or 3rd title. But this is the Scale Trade number 1 out by Steve Orlando. This is such a cool book. This one's about dragons are like extinct and protected, but there's, hunters out there in the scale trade for it, and our hero, kind of breaks into that world and everything. It's written by Steve Orlando, so it's going to be damn good. But also stuff that's damn good and by good writers. From Ani Press, we got Cemetery Kids Don't Die, issue number 3 by Zach Thompson. We've got Robo Force number 1, and we also got Derek Charm's Toxic Summer number 1. Last up from Distillery, we got Blood Brothers Mother, issue number 1. A very
say that 5 times fast,
Bob. I don't think I could say it 2 times slow, but I'll try. Blood Brothers Mother. Blood Brothers Mother. Okay, I did it 2 times slow. I'm not going to try it 5 times fast because that's not going to happen. But it is. I will say this: even though it's an odd title, even though it's a big magazine-sized book, and even though it's like a $10 cover price, it's written by Brian Azriello. So I mean, very, very, very good track record there. I think it's probably going to be worth it to pick up, is all I'm saying. Probably pick that one up if you can. But those are all the new books of note that are coming out this week on my radar. I think we're going to take a very quick pretend break. And when we return, whenever you guys return, you're going to hear that great Nikesh Shukla interview. But when Bob and I return, I don't know, we'll probably start going over the book we're covering this week. Hello and welcome back to the All New, All Different #1 comics podcast, here with a very special guest creator on the line. I want to, normally I would go over like awards and, all the stuff you've written and everything, but your list is like so long. I don't even think I can do you any justice on the awards here because my God, it's like everything you've written is so acclaimed. But just know that we are talking to a novelist, a comic book creator, a screenwriter. We've got somebody really, really cool on the line, somebody I'm really excited to talk to, Nikesh Shukla. Hey, how are you today? Thank you so much for joining us on the All New, All Different #1 Comics podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you very much again for taking the time out of your day to join us here. Really excited to talk about some of your work. I know that when we initially spoke, I was so jazzed because Spider-Man India, one of the coolest interpretations of Spider-Man. I love your miniseries. It was so good. It's like you were able to take the essence of Spider-Man and bring in this whole new culture that was like, especially to me, like a little bit, newer to me. And there's just so much there. It's like a classic Spider-Man story with such a great twist on it. How did you get involved in writing Spider-Man India?
Oh man, I'm so pleased you liked it. Yeah, I was, having been a Spider-Man fan for as long as I have, and also writing so much other stuff, it was definitely one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done. And I'm sure we'll dig into like the ethical quandaries I had about how to put an Indian Spider-Man onto the page and all the rest of it, and the paucity of um sort of knowledge I'd say in America about what India is actually like versus what life in India is like versus what life in India is like, and the perception of it from being British South Asian and all the rest of it. But I guess the origin story, my origin story for writing Spider-Man India is sort of like this. I'll try and keep it brief, but I'm a waffler, so you might
Please
have to
take your time.
you might have
people
to
are here to listen to you.
that you might have to be prudent with the edit points. But when I was like 6 years old, I went to India for a really long time with my family and to stay with my cousins. So my cousins were all really big into Archie comics. And I was 6 years old, and I was kind of jealous that they'd never let me read the Archie comics because they felt that they were too adult for me, all that making out and dates and jalopies and stuff. And my cousin bought me a Spider-Man book, and she said, read this. And I read it cover to cover, and I read it cover to cover, and I read it cover to cover for the next however many months I was there. I read it again and again, and I just became obsessed with the character of Spider-Man. And so since I was 6 years old, I've always been a Spider-Man fan. When I was 11, 12, and I started going to the comic book shop with my best friend Junaid, and we couldn't afford comics. This was like the 90s gold rush of comic books, and we'd both sit at the back of the shop and read whatever we could get away with reading, and then we would focus whatever we could afford to buy that week on any number ones, 25s, 50s, 75s, and 100s, or foil variant covers, because we were like, this is how we'll make our millions. Obviously, we did not, because millions of other people had the same idea. And yeah, like then becoming an author, but still reading Spider-Man. It's funny to be a literary fiction author who is also into comic books, because my goodness, the literary fiction elites really look down on you as like some sort of weird uncultured person for liking literally one of the most popular characters in popular culture in the last 100 years or whatever. But yeah, I was a fan, and I've had this sort of long and storied career of working on books, but also speaking out about diversity, or the lack of diversity in the publishing industry in the UK, and the film and TV industry in the UK and in America. And it sort of resulted in me putting out a book about race and racism and touring it around the world for a good 5 years, which kind of broke my brain, because you shouldn't be talking about racism for a living. It just
you shouldn't have to. Yes.
Yeah, it's a daily re-traumatization. And there was just this 1 year. It was sort of during the, I think, I can't remember if it was at some point during the pandemic. I was just tired. My brain was broken. I turned down a major award. I turned down a thing called an MBE, which is an honor that the Queen or the King of England gives you.
Wow.
And but it stands for Member of the Order of the British Empire. And I was like, I've spent my entire career railing against the British Empire. And so I turned it down, because I have my own sense of integrity. And I was in the papers all the time for like saying mouthy stuff about the paucity of representation on our screens. And I just had enough. And I was sort of losing, during a pandemic, you start thinking, well, why am I doing the things that I do? Right. Is what I do making a difference? Is it important? Is it important to me? Is it important to anyone else in the world? And I just didn't feel any joy in writing. So one day I just randomly tweeted, one day I want to write a Spider-Man comic. And the writer Jamie McKelvey got in touch with me and said, are you serious? Because I can make that I can make some introductions if you're serious. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, Jamie. But very kindly, he put me in touch with the executive editor of Marvel Comics, of Spider-Man Comics at Marvel, Nick Lowe, and said, you two should chat. And that was sort of like two things happened. One was I was like, oh my God, this thing that I never, when I was a boy, like when I was a child, right? And the way I taught myself to write was I would write my own Spider-Man stories. I'd have like issues 1 to 3 of a 5-issue arc, and I wouldn't have issues 4 and 5 because they were hard to get, or I couldn't afford them. So I would just, in school exercise books, I'd write my own versions of how they would end. And that's how I taught myself how to write. That's how I became a writer. Those were the first, that Spider-Man fan fiction was the first fiction that I ever wrote. So, but even then, I never thought that could be a job that I could entertain as something I could do myself. And so, like, how do you then reckon with the fact that your boyhood dream, your childhood dream is a possibility? So I thought I better take this seriously. And the other thing is, Nick probably gets 2 million emails a week from people who want to write a Spider-Man comic. And some of them might be people of note, some of them might not be people of note, but he still gets those emails. I'm sure he does. And so I thought, well, how am I going to pitch him something that is going to make him take notice? I was talking to my friend Rosie Marks about this, Rosie Knight about this, Rosie of the excellent, soon to be relaunched X-Ray Vision podcast. I love Rosie; she's one of my closest friends. And Rosie was like, "Don't pitch him something you think he wants. Pitch him something that you want to write, because then if he says yes to it, you'll really enjoy writing it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's stuff that I tell my students all the time."
good advice.
Yes, great advice.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hardest advice to take is the advice that you give yourself, right? That you give out to other people. And I thought back to Spider-Man India, that first miniseries that came out in 2004 that Jeevan Kang worked on. Yeah, I thought about that miniseries and how that I loved that Spider-Man. It was very serious, that arc. It was the origin story as well, and it was a shame that they hadn't in the years since really moved that character on a much, other than like occasionally being a fun background spot in any of the crossovers, or in like any of the Spider-Verse crossovers or Web Warriors. And I thought, well, why don't I bring him back? Why don't I do something fun with him? Why don't I make him fun? And then so I pitched an idea. Well, I literally just wrote, I really want to bring back Indian Spider-Man. I've got a couple of ideas. And Nick replied and was like, that's great. We were thinking of doing a new miniseries around him. And then we met, and he told me that he was going to be in the next Across the Spider-Verse film, and it was most likely going to be he was going to be one of the breakout characters because he was really fun. And I thought, okay, great. And so yeah, after that, I went away and wrote a story outline for him, and he said yes. And so it was kind of luck, kind of kismet, kind of um Twitter friend nepotism, and kind of just like sometimes the internet can make your boyhood dreams come true.
Well, definitely. And talking about your origin story, how you grew up on comics, I really relate to that, and I love that too, because there was a local spot in my town, and it was bicycle riding distance. So me and my cousin would hop on our bicycles and go up there, and you and I are right around the same age, so all the same stuff was coming out, and that's what we were into. And for some reason, I can't tell you why, we gravitated towards the Robin, the Chuck Dixon Robin that was coming out at the time, which was great and wonderfully written. But looking back, I'm more into Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff like that now. But uh, I'm with you. It's like you had a dollar or two, to go up to the comic book shop with. So you would spend a lot of time, pulling stuff off the stands, reading it, waiting for, hoping that comic book shop owner didn't walk up to you and say, "Hey, kid, get your greasy hands off my comics. I got to sell those or whatever." And we discovered a lot of cool comics and characters and everything that way. So yeah, I love that, and I think that that's super relatable for everybody, especially coming from somebody with yeah, all the credits and everything that you have, somebody who's big up there in the writing world and everything. So that's really cool. Spider-Man India, though, is the miniseries that you wrote. It's just it's such a special, and like I said, it's a unique story, but it's like this grounded classic Spider-Man story at the same time. How did you decide to include the villains that you included, especially Lizard there? Uh, what was the I don't know, kickstart for all of the ideas that went into writing the story?
Yeah, well, there were a lot of considerations I had before I started working on the story. One was like, what are the themes that I'm interested in, and what are the themes that I'm known for writing and interested in writing about? But there was also this thing of like, how do I write about India, right? A
Yep.
place where I've spent a lot of time. I've never lived there. I have a overseas citizen of India ship like card, but I still I've never lived there for long periods of time. But also how do I battle a culture where like the only real knowledge that a lot of people have about Indian culture is you know hacky sitcom jokes about how spicy food upset someone's stomach or whatever, or like spicy food made someone shit themselves or whatever, like really dull, banal stuff.
Mhm,
Or like, like racism is hardly ever imaginative.
mhm, mhm,
And so you're battling unimaginative racism and really flat knowledge of a country and a culture that predates American culture, British culture, European culture. How do you but also is a much more the stereotype of it is one thing, but it's also like a modern country with a lot going on. I could talk a lot about the politics of India right now. Like there's an election going on, whether it's an election in name only or whether it's something slightly more sinister is maybe it's not for this podcast, but I'm not a fan of the prime minister at all. um I'll leave it there. I could probably get this podcast in trouble if I told you my real feelings.
Yeah, you're good.
But how do I
We're
do all
publishing
that?
in America.
But also then you go, well, Marvel, what is the canon of South Asian representation in Marvel Comics? They've got Kamala Khan. We've got Kamala Khan. We've got Kamala Khan. Like it's one of the world's biggest diasporas. It's like it's slightly alarming to me how few South Asian characters are in the Marvel universe or even the Marvel Cinematic Universe or even the comic book universe, the 616 universe, and on and on. And then you go, well, how do I write something that kind of combats people's like minaretti version of India and the spicy food hurt my tummy version of India, and also like they're just a bunch of backward savages who don't speak English version of India, like nonsense stuff. And how do I write something that feels honest, that sort of speaks to the country is at the moment, but also speaks to issues of class, issues of elitism, issues of wealth disparity, which are very real things. And also what it kind of came down to was, if I take the Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility, what does that mean for a superhero? What does that mean in the Indian context? And it made me think of this concept of seva, which is selfless community service, which is something my mum was very proud of. And I kind of hit upon this thing thinking about seva because I was like, well, isn't that what being a superhero is? It's a version of seva. It's a version of selfless community service. Okay, so how do I then combat that? Well, I need villains who are going to point to different versions of who Spider-Man could be or who Bavida could be. So, the lizard represents like this idealized version of the next stage of humanity, the next stage of evolution on Earth based on these sort of like distorted human concepts of elitism. And then you have a wealthy person who's only concerned with their own personal gain. And both of those thematically speak to the reasons why Spider-Man does what he does. And so, the wealth, there was in the early planning stages, like because the lizard was very much, similar to the lizard that we know and love. There was the original version of Geary. I kind of had Wilson. I had Wilson Fisk in my head. I had a kingpin type figure in my head. But as I wrote him, I became more interested in the ideas of like an idea of like a ruthless businessman rather than a crime kingpin. And so he kind of deviated from that. And then it gave me an opportunity to write a brand new villain, basically. So then the other thing was, like, much as I love like the weird Spider-Man stories or the epic Spider-Man stories or the multiversal Spider-Man stories or even the more existential Spider-Man stories, street level Spidey is my favorite Spidey. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is my favorite Spider-Man. And so if being Spider-Man is community service, let's have him save the neighborhood was my feeling. So doing like a grounded classic story with like a couple of grounded classic villains who were quite grounded in their own way, even though one of them was a massive fucking lizard. Yeah, like that just felt and like how can I then contribute to the canon of South Asian representation in Marvel Comics? Well, why don't I take the classic mold and set it in India, and then also sort of subvert what people's expectations of what an Indian Spider-Man could be. And because like the first miniseries is so rooted in Hindu mythology and Hindu folklore, and I thought that's great, but like maybe I should do something different to kind of expand that universe a little bit more. And then if I get to do another miniseries, which I hope will happen, also if other comic book publishers want to talk to me about other original ideas, please come and see me in my inbox. But also, if I get to do it again, I'll do something else completely different. Like it's all about like, sort of expanding that world, because like we've had so few stories set in Earth 50101, and the more I write that character, the more that Marvel and I are having an interesting conversation that they're very receptive to, about how Spider-Man India is kind of a nonsense name for that book, because it kind of just points to the fact that he's Indian, but he's the only Spider-Man in Earth 50101. So why not have him just be Spider-Man? In the same way that you know what I'm saying. Like if it could border on Orientalist to basically call him Spider-Man India when he's the only Spider-Man in his universe.
Sure, it's like whenever you take Miles Morales out, and he's the Spider-Man of that. I mean, until he comes over to the 616, but in the Ultimate Universe and everything, uh, yeah, it's very interesting the way that you did this, because like you said, you got this really grounded story, I've said that a few times here, so I sound like a broken record saying that over and over again, but I want to really point out that fact to everybody listening. If you've not read Spider-Man India, which I mean, I can't imagine anybody that hasn't. Such a wonderful story, but it's you take something like the representation of Spider-Man India on the big screen in the Spider-Verse movie and everything. You take the mini series that predates your mini series where the character came from, and then you take what you've written here, and it's just there's such a world of difference, and you're really solidifying that character. It's really taking that character, taking him out of his element that he was kind of created in the first place with, like you said, all that mythology and everything, and making this very down to earth story that's really based in a community, and all of that, and really based on these villains that the villains are a big part of the book, as they are in like any superhero story, but really kind of like what you're looking at in your miniseries here is the community around Spider-Man, how they kind of turn on him in a way, and then he turns on himself. And I thought that was I think one of my favorite parts of your entire story of Spider-Man here is how you know he's able to go take that job, and work for the company who's completely against his entire neighborhood and community and everything, and really say some bad things about himself as Spider-Man, and then it just clicks and he's like, what am I doing? you know
Yeah.
I really love what you did with the story, with those elements.
I will say all credit to this is the power of having a brilliant editor, because in the original story outline, I think it was just 2 lines. He gets a job at Geary Corps,
Mhm.
posting videos of Spider-Man being an idiot that he has to film himself or something like that. And it's just really thrown away.
Mhm.
And Nick was like, "No, no, this is a whole issue." I was like, "Really?" It was like, "Trust me." And it ended up being the most fun one of all of them to write. And I really thought like writing fight scenes would be the fun stuff, but actually like what fight scenes haven't been done in comic books? You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
it's really hard to come up with new ways of having big, cool fight scenes. And so it's actually all the really characterful stuff that sort of transcends. And he knew that, and he was like, "Look, it's just a really characterful comic." Then,
It was done in such I don't know if nuanced is the word. I can't pick a word out in my head right now, but like it was just done in this like really wonderful way where again, like I said, you've got Spider-Man basically working against himself. I mean, it's not something I can't say it's not something we've never seen before, but it's definitely not something that I've seen done in this way before. I think you have a really unique take and a really unique voice on it, And I love the callback to Spider-Man throwing his suit in the garbage can and everything, and just focusing on his job, focusing on something else. And it's almost like a way for him to cope with what's going on. He's now like romanced this idea of, okay, well, now I'm just going to trash Spider-Man. And it's not that you really get much of a there's not like a whole bunch of exposition on why he decides to do this. And I think that I love that part the most, because that's how we are. I mean, we're very nuanced as people. Sometimes you do stupid shit, and it doesn't really make sense. And I think that a weaker writer would have like really dove into that, and dove into the psyche of why it would be important for him to do this, and everything else. But you really let that play out on the page and really let us kind of interpret it. And I think that that again, that's one of my favorite parts of the miniseries. It's one of my favorite things about your writing here, is like you really give us a chance to uh, be involved along with the writing, like along the way.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot. I'm really glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good stuff. So, look, I have to ask this question, because you talked about having some more ideas in the head canon there or whatever for the character. Today's Blood Hunt Day. It's May 1st. Marvel's come out with this massive event going on, Blood Hunt. It's like spanning like, I don't know, 8 billion titles, whatever. I've read Blood Hunt #1. It's fantastic. Can't wait to read more about it. It's really cool. But look, how did Marvel not come to you and ask you to do Spider-Man India Blood Hunt, for one thing? um, would you, if you had to pitch, I don't know, I don't know how you are pitching off the top of your head, but if you had to pitch like a Spider-Man Blood Hunt, a Spider-Man India Blood Hunt, uh, you know, this version of Spider-Man versus vampires that are souped up from drinking superhero blood in the Marvel universe. Would you have anything to go with it?
You know, I'd probably go kind of esoteric, because there's a really old Indian folk tale called Vikram and the Vitala, and the Vitala is like an Indian folklore version of a vampire, and it's like an early representation of like a blood-sucking human. I don't. It's not the origin of vampire folklore, but it's a version of vampires. And the story goes that so Vikram has to carry this old man through a forest, and the old man will tell him a folk story. The folk story has a moral center, and then he will pose the moral question to Vikram at the end of it. And if Vikram God, I'm misremembering it, but he then sort of at the end of each story will reveal himself to be a vampire, and it's really fun and sort of like, I guess, like like really good morality tales. I'd probably pick one of those old stories and reinvent it somehow, or like bring it up to date, or do a version of it, because I always really love I love it when people take really old stories and give them contemporary retellings. It's always fun for me. So I'd probably do something like that.
Well, fantastic. I hope somebody from Marvel is listening. I hope it's not too late to get a Blood Hunt tie-in in there, because, man, I would love to see this character do something in this event, which is really cool, and I'm really excited about. Let's talk about your story and what's coming up. The Free Comic Book Day 2024 Marvel Voices. You've got a story in this book starring Spider-Man India. So. I don't know if you can reveal much about it, or anything, but if you can, please do.
Yeah, so I ended up writing what I thought was, when I first started coming up with an idea, this was the first idea I had, and I scrapped it, and I ended up coming back to it because I thought it was a good like short story rather than a 5-issue arc. Um I guess I don't want to say too much about it because it's quite short and quite
Mhm.
silly and fun. Like, I just really went for fun with it, and I really wanted to like, now we've had, the mystical Spider-Man India in the original miniseries, and we've had Entourage Spider-Man India in all of the other like tie-ins, and we've had street level Spidey in Seva. I wanted to do Bollywood Spider-Man, basically. So it's a very Bollywoodified tale. So it's very heightened, it's very fun, it's very silly, and it just sort of showcases another side of Pavitra.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it. Whenever I saw that this was, going to be dropping, I was, and what that's this, today's May 1st, Free
So
Comic Book
Saturday.
Day is Saturday. Yeah. So just a few days away. Yeah, I was really, really excited to see, that you were going to be back writing on this, and the character would be back for a story in here. So, I know I'm really excited about it. I know everybody out there is really stoked about it. Again, you did such a wonderful job on that miniseries that it just, it's something that I go back to. I mean, it didn't wrap up that long ago, but I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've read it since then. It's just such a wonderful, contained Spider-Man story, and I think that's, there's been so many Spider-Man stories. There's been so many authors of Spider-Man stories, writers, creators, all of that, uh, and there's certain ones that stick with you, and certain ones that you kind of forget about and all of that, but this is definitely one that has stuck with me, and a lot of friends, and everything too. Just such a wonderful version of Spider-Man that's just really a lot of fun to read, and really layered. Again, for anybody that hasn't read the story, it's just there's a lot there. There's a lot in the character. It's not your surface level uh, telling of Spider-Man, and it's just a really fun and enjoyable story. So I'm really excited to see you and Spider-Man India coming back here in this free Comic Book Day Marvel Voices edition. So uh,
Yeah, thank you. And I
yeah.
hope to do another mini series of him, or even an ongoing book, because spoiler alert, at the end of the mini series, we relaunched him with a new costume. It'd be a shame to waste a new costume.
Amazing. Good. I can't wait to pick up multiple copies of that. Uh, but yeah, it's again, make sure you guys hit up your local comic book shops. Go check out Free Comic Book Day. They're giving away free comic books, and I guarantee there's going to be plenty that you want to pick up. You're definitely going to want to pick up this one. It's going to be very, very well written Spider-Man India story in there. So yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining me today. I didn't even get into any of the, other stuff that, you've written so much and everything, but of course I keep this comic book focused. But if you guys want to see some amazing, amazing work out there, all you got to do is, Google your name. There's plenty of fun stuff that comes up. But is there anything else that you want to talk about, plug, any sites anywhere people can check you out?
Yeah, I've written a backup story for Amazing Spider-Man 50, which is out in 2 weeks' time, which I'm
Oh,
really,
amazing.
really excited about. Um, and yeah, hopefully I'll get to do more comic books. I've got a couple of ideas for some original ideas that I just need to work out who to pitch them to and how to pitch them and all the rest of it. And I'm a novelist, so go and buy my novels, guys.
Yes, go support, please. But yeah, again, I can't thank you enough. I'm so excited about your free comic book day and book, and now knowing that you have some work coming up on Amazing Spider-Man issue number 50, even better. So we got at least two things to look forward to here, and just coming up. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day again. Much appreciated, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
Bye. And we are back with the all new, all different number one comics podcast. Thank you so much for checking out that amazing interview. Bob, I do want to say this. It was so cool having him on. He is an Indian creator and he lives in London, and he's got this cool accent, and such a cool guy with a really cool perspective. I want to point out one of the things that he told me, and it's written all over online and stuff like that as well. But he's like super like punk rock in attitude, because he is like really prestigious. He's been awarded a lot of awards for his writing and everything. He was awarded this prestigious award from the Queen, and he denied it.
Wow.
He was like, I can't very well talk
Really?
shit about the establishment and then accept an award from them. Yeah, dude is like super cool, like just a really cool guy. So I don't know. I was really excited.
Wow.
He's also done like TED Talks and stuff. So, I mean, I think this is probably the first time that I've been able to sit down and talk to somebody who's done a TED Talk before. I felt really just like, I was like, this guy is going to hate me. I'm a horrible interviewer, and this guy has done a freaking TED Talk and denied an award from the Queen. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that that's something I never thought I would be doing in my life. So it was very interesting to do. But yeah.
Interviewing somebody who denied an award from the Queen?
Yeah. Or done a TED Talk or any of that, just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff that, again, like we're able to do here on this podcast. I don't know, dude. Stuff I never thought I'd do in my life.
That is true.
Really cool. But I guess, that brings it to, let's talk about the book we're talking about, Bob. We're talking about Space Ghost.
Is that what we do?
I hope so. That's what I'm planning on doing either way. But yeah, Space Ghost issue number 1 out from Dynamite Comics. The last time we had a Space Ghost comic, I think it was like the late 90s. I want to say, no, I'm sorry. It was 2005. DC had a comic out, a miniseries, Space Ghost miniseries. I don't remember who the creators were, but yeah, that was
DC
the last
had
time.
Space Ghost?
For a short amount of time, they sure did. Now this one, again, from David Pepose. We just had David on to talk about this book just a little while ago. Really cool guy, really fun, awesome interview we did with him. You can go back and check that out a few episodes back. This one, I'll go over the creators. I'll go over everything. The synopsis from Dynamite's website is really long, so please excuse me while I stumble going over this. But this one, greed and corruption flourishes in the darkness between stars, with the territories of the Galactic Federation spread far and wide across the vastness of space. Pirates and hijackers ransack the distant colonies with cruel disregard for the innocent scientists living within them. Yet there is a cosmic vigilante who I don't know that word, who operates out of justice throughout the galaxy, bringing vengeance to those who prey upon the defenseless. Some say he is a policeman who has abandoned the structures of law. Others say he's a phantom, the sole survivor of a war-torn planet. And those who have survived his wrath claim he is more of a force of nature, able to bend the very elements of creation to decimate his enemies. They call him the Space Ghost, and his adventures begin here. Award-winning writer David Pepose from Punisher and superstar artist Jonathan Lau from Vampirella Strikes kick off this action-packed series with a surprise attack on space colony Omicron, home of the brilliant scientist Dr. Jared Kepler and his young children Jan and Jace, as well as their pet monkey Blip. With the colony's defenses overwhelmed, all seems lost. But these ruthless pirates didn't count on the wild card that is Space Ghost. Again, sorry, that was a very long synopsis, and we all know I can barely get through a sentence of my own synopsis. So there's that.
Is it longer than your synopsis?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to say yes. Let's talk David Pepose for a second. Again, we had him on. You can go back and check out that interview. He did Savage Avengers. He did Moon Knight, City of the Dead, Devil That Wears My Face, Scouts Honor, Spencer and Locke, Going to the Chapel, Punisher. He's done stuff. He's done a lot of really cool stuff. If you guys aren't checking out The Devil That Wears My Face that's out right now, I think the finale issue is about to drop. Definitely check it out. It's really, really amazing. David is actually such a cool guy. He's so cool that, after we did the interview, he sent me an advanced reader copy, of Space Ghost, and just, he sends me things now, which is really, really cool. Again, stuff that I never thought in my entire life would happen after this podcast. It's really cool. And artist is, wow, Bob, what words am I saying? Artist Jonathan Lau. He's worked on a lot of Dynamite stuff. He did Green Hornet, Battlestar Galactica Origins, Vampirella Strikes, The Bionic Man, Solar Man of the Atom. he's done things too. A lot of stuff over here at Dynamite. Seems like Dynamite is really good at having like house artists, like people who work exclusively on stuff. I don't have a problem with some really good art. Let's get into my synopsis, then we're going to talk about the book. Space Ghost opens with an intense scene of a spaceship being overrun. We meet Dr. Jared Kepler and his children, Jan and Jace, and their monkey Blip. Dr. Kepler, seemingly knowing his fate, tells Jace to make sure to watch over Blip, and then he hands his daughter, Jan, a blaster, which she's been trained in. Just as he opens the door to reach the hangar, he's struck and killed by some bounty hunting aliens. The aliens try to hack the mainframe, but Dr. Kepler wiped it clean beforehand. And as Jan and Jace hide in the shadows, Jan shoots the aliens with the blaster. Just then, Space Ghost shows up and... sorry, excuse me. I don't even know where I lost myself here on my own writing. But Space Ghost shows up and fights a bunch of drones. Jan and Jace then escape into another area, and a group of very large helmet-headed characters show up saying that they are the Galactic Patrol. It's then revealed that they're actually the feline alien space pirates, Brock and his brother Sutso. I'm not sure how you pronounce that name. And they plan to kill the kids. Space Ghost shows up again to the rescue. A long fight happens, and just as the space pirates seem to get the upper hand, Jan grabs one of Space Ghost's power bands and saves him long enough for him to take out Brack. The kids then, being saved, are in the corner crying about being all alone, and Space Ghost runs to their side and reminds them that they're not alone. And that's my little description there of what happens in the book. Let's break this thing down, Bob. What did we think about the I don't know, you know what we talk about here. What'd you think about the story beat?
Yeah. I thought the story beats were really, really straightforward. I mean, there was literally no exposition to even think about slowing it down whatsoever.
Dude, I'm with you. This one just started to the wall. It was David didn't give us any room to breathe, and I actually really like the tenseness of it. I think it really sets the scene really, really well. We already know David is such a good writer, so it'd be hard for I'm not going to say it'd be hard for him to mess this up, but he's not going to mess this up. David's really proud of this work, and I can see why, because these beats are on point. He just knocks it out of the park. He does a really good job here. What about the dialogue? I don't know. Obviously Space Ghost is an existing IP. It was a cartoon back in the day, I think in the 60s or so. And then obviously, it was combed through for whatever to do Space Ghost Coast to Coast and all of that. And obviously DC revamped it a little while ago, 20 years ago at this point, to do a series with it and everything. What did you think about the voices of these characters?
I thought the voices is what, is what they should be. Of course you got, the father who's pretty much, resigned to the fact that he's probably not going to survive. You got, the children who are, of course, trying to keep it together, but, are worried at the same time. And, of course you got, Space Ghost, who's just, badass.
Yeah, I'm with you. The voice, he really nails the voices, and I think the beginning of this book, I really like it because we got Dr. Kepler there and with the kids, and he's how David is able to write on the page, that we feel that he knows he's about to die, and sets his kids up for success, after his death and everything. I don't know. I don't feel like that's something I could write. I'm really impressed with with the way that David wrote this. I think that it's really cool through that dialogue and through, I don't know, just the nuance and everything in his writing. Really done really well. How about the narrative of the book?
I mean, the narrative. If I could say anything, I mean, the narrative just reminded me of, like, any kind of, sci-fi tragedy, where, something happens, main character, main characters, one of their parents dies, and then of course when everything looks, bleak, some, badass comes in to save the day. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it's a little, simplified, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good start because I think that he had to go into it that way. I think that would be the only way to tell this story. We got to have like buy-in for an existing IP, just like our shortcomings last week with Dick Tracy. I think that David didn't do any of that. He didn't do any of the problems that we had with Dick Tracy, and I think that was good. He reminded us that even though we might have some memory of who this character is or of the franchise or something, in the back of our minds, like that needs to be wiped clean, and we need to go into this like brand new and everything. And we need to build these characters versus just know them by name. And I felt like that was, something that was a problem with Dick Tracy. It was like they were relying so much on us knowing Dick Tracy and Flat Top and all of that. I feel like David's not doing any of this here. He's introducing these characters in a way to where it's like, this is our fresh start here. This is how we know the characters. So I think that it was done really well. I really like the narrative in this book. The last thing with the story being the world building. I love the world building here. I think it's perfect. It's top notch. It's probably the strength, the biggest strength of this book. And that's saying a lot because David can really write, and holy shit, can Jonathan illustrate the hell out of this thing. But I think the
really
world building the world building's my favorite part. He just nails everything about this world and multiple worlds. I mean, I know we're out in space, but I love it. How about you on the world building?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I want to see, more of the world. I want to see the world outside the world, so to speak. Which, I mean, of course, that's going to happen in subsequent, issues. So, but I mean, I think so far he's done a really good job fleshing it out so far.
Yeah, he really, really has. It's very good. He is nailing this thing on the world building on all fronts. I'm really impressed with it. Let's get over to the art. Let's talk about Jonathan Lau, if I can say that correctly. I don't know. We'll see. The character art, again, like we already kind of alluded to here, and I know we're both kind of opening the book now and everything. Dude, this art is so good. This is really, really good art.
It really is.
I love it. God, it's
you
good
already
art.
know you already know it passes my background test.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's almost like we can skip the next category because it passes.
Yeah.
But the character art's really, really good. I'm looking at things like, of course, we have the human characters, we have Space Ghost. I want to talk more about like the feline aliens. I think that they honestly don't have a name for their race in the Space Ghost lore or mythos or whatever. I think they're just called feline aliens. But the characters that are Brack and stuff like that, God, they just look amazing. Something about them is obviously otherworldly and everything, but it's tied in this really wonderful, like natural way too. I am really, really impressed with this artwork. I love it. I think it's done so well. The characters are phenomenal. Like you said, going to the backgrounds are really, really good. And with that being said, there are backgrounds that are just solid colors too, but they work so well. And yeah, the backgrounds are phenomenal. I've got it open to a panel now where Space Ghost is kind of breaking through a wall, and there's rocks going all over the place and everything. It just looks fantastic. The spacecraft is very sterile but sketchy in places. It's just done phenomenally. It's really well.
Yeah, and I mean, I love his use of shadows in this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the shadows are really well too. That's something that I didn't even point out. The shadows are done really well. I don't know, all the creatures, just everything about it. How about the locations then? We're really kind of on a spacecraft. We're not globe trotting or whatever. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be globe trotting; it would be world trotting, whatever, whatever planet trotting, whatever, however you say that. Yet, but I expect that to happen throughout the series. So really, the locations are kind of the spacecraft here, but I love how we explore all the different areas of it, and they're all very different. And then, especially, there's a lot of explosions and stuff going on, and that looks really well too. Jonathan's an all-star here. He really does it. He really brings his A game. You got any thoughts on locations?
No, I mean the locations definitely. I mean, like you said, I mean it's basically spaceship, hangar bay. That's pretty much it. And I mean this is kind of a character design, and I'm sure you thought the same thing. Space Ghost has been working out.
Dude, Space Ghost is ripped. I would hate to get in a fight with him.
Holy crap! I mean, that very last panel, especially, I'm just like, Space Ghost has an 8-pack.
He sure does. Yeah. Imagine seeing that dude in a dark alley. Would not.
Oh, jeez. Or the vastness of space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's just. God, he's ripped. It's like you can see his veins protruding through his costume. It's a little scary.
Yeah, yeah. If there were any, and I hate to do this. I hate to always do this, but if there were any negative, I would say about the art, it's just. I've got it open to. When Space Ghost first lands through the ceiling to take Brack and his brother by surprise. Yep. And then on the following page, it's got, him shielding Jen. And just the Space Ghost that falls through the ceiling is just not as detailed as the Space Ghost who we see in the rest of this comic. And I mean, I'm not saying it's bad by any means, but I mean, again, if I were to critique anything, I mean, that would be the only thing.
Okay, I'm with you on that because I love that panel. I especially love the panel that you're describing. But yeah, the one where he breaks through the wall and everything.
Yeah.
I was wondering what was up with it because it has this look. And then I started to think his name is Space Ghost. And I was like, is that like a power of his or something? Is he like turning kind of translucent or something? Because it's like, there's no way Jonathan left this artwork like unfinished like that unintentionally. So maybe we just don't know enough about his power set or his costume or something.
Right. And I was kind of wondering the same thing because I know, especially with his gauntlets. I mean, they allow him to do so many things, and I know I don't know if intangibility per se is one of the things, but I know, he has some form of, invisibility or intangibility somewhat.
Yeah, and it's I'm with you though. I was confused about that as well, but maybe we'll learn more about it. But I'm trusting the process here. I'm definitely trusting Jonathan to see what happens with it. So the last little thing that we talk about before we go into our review is the colors. This one's got a separate colors. It is Andrew Dalhouse. That's Dalhause. So I'm going to go with Dalhouse. I'm not too 100% sure on that, but hopefully that's correct. Man, I'm going to lead on this because just the opening page where we're getting ransacked and overtaken, beautiful colors, beautiful. They're muted where they need to be. The explosions look wonderful. Whenever we show close-ups on the panels, there's lots of detail in the coloring and shadow work and everything. I love the colors throughout this book. It's kind of reminding me of like a later like New Mutants book in the colors. Like I really love it a lot.
Right.
I think in art and everything, nailing like that team aspect of, you know, and everybody having like an individual tone and palette and all that, even though that sounds kind of weird, and still being part of a group, like just really works really well. So I love the colors.
Oh, and yeah. So before we get to our you know, final review, final question, I just have to say, you know, especially speaking of art, I think they did such a great job having Francisco Mattina do the regular A cover for this book. I mean,
yeah, that cover's phenomenal.
You know, Francisco Mattina, you know, in a character who works in space. I mean, just gorgeous.
Yeah, that is such an appealing cover. Bob, I picked up the Michael Cho cover because holy shit, I love it. And you know me, I'm like a pop art guy, so this, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on my screen there, but
yeah,
man, that cover is just. But yeah, every cover of this, I you know, looking at the little cover collection in the back, like there's not really like a bad choice. You couldn't really find a single one that's not good. And I'm going to say this before we get into our, you know, final thoughts and review and everything. Shit, dude, Dynamite has done it again. Like every single time I think that I'm like not a fan of Dynamite, I love their books. Like I feel like we don't say such nice things about like a Marvel book, a DC book, you know, sometimes an Image book. Like every single time we've talked about Dynamite, we're like, we love it. It's so crazy because all I can think of when I think of Dynamite is like TNA, you know, and like stuff that I don't really care about that much. But no, this isn't that at all. This is so good. And I knew I know to trust David Pepose, but man, this is good. So I don't know if you want to lead, if you want to go into your final thoughts before. Yeah, why don't you go with it, Bob? We'll slide it over.
So my final thoughts are, you know, for our listeners and myself, are 2 thumbs up. You know, I mean, I highly recommend this book. Whether you're a fan of Space Ghost or you're just reading about Space Ghost for the first time.
Yeah, and I definitely second that because, again, the only really experience I have with Space Ghost is knowing that Space Ghost existed before and watching Space Ghost Coast to Coast, you know, when I was a teenager or whatever. This is really, really good. This is, I don't know how else to put it. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I've said everything I can about it. Go out and buy this. Yes, absolutely. Go back and listen to our interview with David because it's really good and he talks about the book. But if this is any indication on what the other books are up against in 2024, then I've already got a clear winner of, you know, who my book of the year is. This was really, really good. I really loved this. God, and it's like, again, with the Dynamite, you know, with the H.P. Lovecraft book, the Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft book that we covered, like, these are so much better than you're expecting them to be. It's so much better than they have any right to be. And just knowing that you're going to go open up a Dynamite comic that you paid, what, $4.99 for and get this level of enjoyment out of it, dude, it's so worth it. I'd pay $10 for this book. It is awesome. So that is absolutely a very good review, a very good thumbs up, a very high. Yes, we recommend that you add this to your pull list and go check out issue number 2 from Bob and I. David Pepose, all I can do is say thank you for giving us this book. Thank you, Jonathan Lau, for illustrating this book. It's awesome. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment. And we are back with the all-new, all-different #1 Comics Podcast, episode 68. Bob, here to talk to you about some new books that are dropping next week.
Yep.
Of course, before Bob does that, there's a very, very important thing that must happen. It's disclaimer time. Welcome to disclaimer time. All you kids, disclaimer time. Gather around for disclaimer time with Bob.
You really need to set that to music.
Right, Bob? It gets better every time. By the time we are done with this podcast, it'll have 3 full verses, a chorus, and a bridge.
I was going to say, the lyrics always seem to get longer and longer. So, but yes, like I'll say right now, and like I always say on all the episodes, these are just a few of the books that are coming out next week. So if you want a more in-depth list, please consult elsewhere. You can call your local comic shop, Dan's favorite, Harry Potter Owl, your favorite comic shop, Smoke Signal, just whatever you want to do to get in touch with them.
I'm going to go with a new one this week. I had a thought. You know how they have that NASCAR thing, like where you can, people drive cars really fast in a circle for hours on end, and sometimes car accidents and whatever. A lot of times there's advertisements on the side of those cars. So really what you could do if you want to know what's coming out every week is just put an ad up on one of those cars. I'm sure it doesn't cost that much money. And just say, hey, local comic book shop, if you can, go ahead and give me a call every Tuesday before New Comic Book Wednesday. Let me know all the titles that are out. Let me know who the writers and artists and editors on those books are. And, maybe I'll buy one if you read the entire synopsis to me. I'm sure people will be calling left and right.
And I will say, especially since you just added that, with as big as NASCAR is and how many people watch NASCAR, I'm kind of surprised nobody's done that yet.
Right? I mean, it's time. I'm coming up with the ideas here, is all I'm saying.
Think of how many eyes in foot traffic you would get if you were a comic shop and you advertised on the side of a NASCAR.
Well, I know what I'm doing when I open my comic shop, Bob. That's all I can say.
First you got to know something about NASCAR. Do you know anything about NASCAR?
Cars, drive, circle, lots and lots, turning.
The basics of NASCAR, yeah. Do you know any of the drivers?
No, but I did watch that really great Final Destination that opens at the NASCAR event. Man, that's one of my favorite Final Destinations. Super underrated franchise, by the way.
I'm sure NASCAR drivers, if they've watched that movie, I'm sure they hate that scene. Just because they do. So, starting off this list from IDW, we have Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees #6.
Bob, this sucks. It's the final issue. This series is so good.
I know. I'm really disappointed this is only a 6 issue.
All I'm saying is there's no way they don't do something else in the universe. They have to.
Yeah, that is very true because, this came out of nowhere, and I'm really glad you talked me into buying a copy of #1.
Exactly. Whenever you sell that thing for $500, don't forget you owe me a commission.
So next up from Marvel, we have Giant Size X-Men #1, and this one you can actually afford.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that Giant Size X-Men, but it's this Giant Size X-Men. Bob, and it's got a first appearance in it. You can check out Maze, the new villain.
Yeah. His powers are that he traps you in a maze. Wait a minute, that's arcade.
Cool. Yeah.
That's basically arcade, so. Next up from DC, I'm sure Dan's looking forward to this book. We have Batman number 147.
Bob, only because I have to try to pronounce the name of Sir N.R. Whoever that is taking on a sidekick. I don't know what that means, who these people are. I haven't read a Batman comic in quite a while.
I was going to say, I don't know who Zurinar is, and I don't know why he or she is taking on a sidekick.
Hey, gotta have a sidekick.
But, I mean, taking up a sidekick. Sticking with DC, we have Boy Wonder number 1.
Bob, could it be a 5-issue limited series that teams Damian with past Robins to battle a demon of Gotham City? Guess so.
Oh my God, DC doing a 5-issue Batman adjacent title.
Wow.
I know, that's amazing right there. Going to Boom Studios, we have Armory Wars No World for Tomorrow number 1.
Okay, so let me give you a quick backstory on this.
Okay.
Years ago, there used to be this band. They're still around. They're called Coheed and Cambria, but great band, especially their early stuff. Really, really top-notch stuff. I would guess you could call it like, I don't know, third, fourth wave, like emo pop punk. I don't know. It wasn't really pop punk. Anyway, we'll get out of that. But their singer, Claudio Sanchez, had this, like, he's a super nerdy guy. He had this great idea for, like, this whole comic book universe. And he started getting comic books published under the Armory. I remember picking up issue number 1 because I was like, holy shit, Claudio Sanchez is doing a comic book. I'm picking this up. It heated up for a while, and this was back before I got into comic book speculation or anything. And I was like, you mean I can sell this comic book for a lot more than I paid for it? Okay. And I sold my first issue, and I regretted it later. But this series is finally wrapping up. This is the final series of a 20-year saga, and it's been, all of it's referenced in their music and everything. So it's a really cool story, really big story. I'll be sad to see it go, but yeah, much like my Armory Wars number 1, I guess it'll be gone.
Wow, that's a long run coming to an end. Another long run coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to Marvel, we have a tie-in to Blood Hunt. We have Dracula, Blood Hunt number 1.
Yeah, there's a lot of tie-ins for Blood Hunt, but I'm excited about all of them. The story's cool. Don't forget, we're getting our Jubilee one coming out pretty soon, too, so I'm stoked about that.
I mean, is she still a vampire?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, she knows the vampire life, so. Staying with Marvel, we have another tie-in, Blood Hunters number 1.
Yeah, this one's got the first team appearance of the Blood Hunters with Dagger, Manwolf, and Hawkeye.
That's a team right there.
Sure as hell is.
Staying with Marvel, we have another tie-in, one that I'm sure you're going to get. Strange Academy, Blood Hunt number 1.
I do love my Strange Academy. I do pick up lots and lots of Strange Academy. This one is an event tie-in featuring Doyle, Dormammu, Zoe, I don't know how to say the last name. Shaylee Moonpetal and Gurman. You know what, Bob? I can't say the names of these characters. You know that. You were just standing there waiting for me to fail, but I'm not going to do it anymore.
And that's German.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, sure. Going back to DC, we have Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum number 4.
Bob, I know you're excited. This one includes a code for the Mad Hatter weapon, digital token redeemed, and the Kill the Justice League video game.
Yeah, I still have not played the game.
Got to get those tokens, Bob.
And finally, rounding out the list from IDW, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Black, White, in green.
Yeah, stoked about this. An anthology of stories printed in only those three colors: black, white, and green. So, what are our heroes? Little like masks? What are those called? They're not called masks. They're called masks. I don't know. Anyways, I guess they're all they can't have their proper colors, so that's sad. I'm sad to see that. Yeah, I'm excited to read this. This is great. I still have to wait for Jason Aaron's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 to come out. I can't wait, Bob. I can't wait for it. So I guess this is supposed to tie me over until then. But we've got 3 names on our wheelofnames.com wheel, not sponsored by yet. Come at us, Wheel of Names. They are Ain't No Grave from Image Comics, Boy Wonder from DC, and Crocodile Black from Boom. Bob, it's time to spin the wheel and see where it lands. Looks like next week we will be covering Bob. We're covering Crocodile Black. I can't believe it. The one I suggested.
Okay.
It's almost like the wheel is rigged in my favor, but yes, we will be covering Crocodile Black #1. And as you said, you correctly, I will have to learn the name of the artist before we do the episode. So I've got to do some homework. I'm scared, but we'll get it.
Yeah, well, I mean that's why I'm here.
Thank God for that. That about wraps us up. As always, make sure you use our hashtag #AllNewAllDifferentNation to be entered in our weekly giveaway. And check us out on Instagram at ANAD_#1 Comics Podcast, on X at ANADNO Comic Pod, on TikTok at ANAD1 Comics Pod. You can check us out on YouTube too under the Comic Book channel. Bob, I think that's it. Unless you got anything else you want to say, may the 4th be with you.
Sure.
I took the quote right after this. Right?
Yep.